A gunslinger buys a nun at auction and makes her wonder if God sent him instead. The sun beat mercilessly on Redemption, Colorado, a town whose name mocked its true nature. Sister Mary Catherine stood on the crude wooden auction block, her once pristine habit stained with dust and despair. 3 weeks with the Rawlins gang had taught her that prayers sometimes went unanswered, yet she clung to her silver crucifix like a drowning woman to driftwood. Next up, gentlemen, a genuine sister of mercy. The auctioneer's voice carried across the square. Captured after the Santa Fe coach raid. Ransom demands went unanswered. Cole Hawkins watched from the crowd's edge, his winter blue eyes fixed not on the nun, but on Thomas Rawlins. For 3 years, he'd tracked the Rawlins gang, seeking the men who'd murdered his brother and sister-in-law, leaving their son, his nephew Jamie, orphaned and traumatized. The Colt peacemaker, on his hip, had claimed many lives, but James Rawlins still drew breath. Today, Thomas would lead him to his brother. The bidding began with crude jokes and lewd suggestions. Sister Mary Catherine's face remained impassive, though a single tear traced a path through the dust on her cheek. Cole noticed the tear, and something long dormant stirred within him. $500, Cole called out, his voice slicing through the rabble. The crowd fell silent, turning toward the notorious gunslinger. Thomas Rawlins' face contorted with recognition and fear. 600, Thomas called, desperately, trying to prevent Cole from having reason to remain in town. $1,000. Cole's voice dropped to a deadly quiet. Sister Mary Catherine's eyes snapped open, fixing on the tall, scarred man. Their gazes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps, of souls equally adrift in a violent world. Sold! The auctioneer's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Thomas melted into the crowd as Cole approached the platform. The gunslinger counted out nearly all his money, ignoring the auctioneer's crude insinuations. "Can you ride, sister?" Cole asked, meeting her eyes directly. "Yes, I can ride." Her voice remained steady despite everything. As they walked to the livery stable, she asked quietly, "May I know the name of the man who has purchased me?" "Cole Hawkins." He glanced back at her. "And I didn't buy you. I paid for your freedom." At the edge of town, Cole looked back once. Thomas had vanished, taking Cole's vengeance with him. Yet as Sister Mary Catherine settled into her saddle, back straight despite her ordeal, Cole felt the weight of a different obligation forming. "We'll reach Black Rock in 3 days," he said. "There's a convent there." What he didn't say was that Black Rock lay in the opposite direction from Thomas Rawlins' trail. Cole couldn't have explained why that mattered, why the nun's safety had suddenly become more important than the vengeance that had driven him for 3 years. Behind them, redemption's dust settled on empty promises. Ahead lay a path neither had anticipated, drawn by forces beyond vengeance or faith alone. The first night's camp brought an uneasy silence. Cole built a fire with practiced efficiency, while Sister Mary Catherine watched, her coronet removed, dark hair now visible in a simple bun. Without the stiff white headdress, she looked younger, more vulnerable, yet her eyes held a quiet resilience that Cole found himself respecting. "Why did you do it, Mr. Hawkins?" she finally asked, firelight dancing across her features. "Thomas Rawlins was there," Cole answered, his voice flat. "He's the brother of the man I'm hunting." So I was simply a means to an end. No judgment colored her tone, merely curiosity. "At first," Cole admitted, then added unexpectedly, "no one deserves to be sold like cattle, sister. especially not a woman of God. The next morning, Cole surprised himself by teaching her to build a fire. By afternoon, he was showing her how to handle his spare revolver. "I pray I never need this knowledge," she said, adjusting her grip as he'd shown her. "Pray all you want," Cole replied, "but aim true if the time comes." On the third day, thunderclouds gathered. When rain began hammering down, Cole quickly constructed a lean-to from canvas in his pack. The small shelter forced them closer than either was comfortable with, their shoulders nearly touching as they watched water cascade off the canvas edge. "My father wanted me to marry a banker," Sister Mary Catherine said suddenly. "When I chose the church instead, he disowned me." Cole studied her profile. "Yet you don't seem bitter." "God's plans aren't always what we expect," she said softly. "The greatest blessings often come disguised as hardships." Something in her words loosened something in Cole. "My brother's boy," he found himself saying. 4 years old, hasn't spoken since he watched his parents die. He's waiting in Denver with a friend." She turned to him then, eyes filled with compassion rather than pity. Children are remarkably resilient when given love and consistency. "I'm not exactly qualified to provide either," Cole said grimly. Mary Catherine's hand briefly touched his forearm. "Faith doesn't mean believing God will shield us from suffering. It means believing suffering isn't the end of the story." Lightning flashed, illuminating her face. For the first time in years, Cole felt something beyond vengeance taking root inside him. The next morning dawned clear. As they broke camp, Cole found himself watching her more carefully, noticing the grace with which she moved, the kindness in her interactions, the quiet humor that occasionally surfaced in her comments. A swollen creek blocked their path by midday. Cole dismounted, evaluating the crossing. "I'll carry you across," he said. Mary Catherine hesitated only briefly before nodding. When Cole lifted her, he was struck by the contradiction, her evident physical lightness against the moral weight she carried. Her arms circled his neck with careful propriety, yet there was nothing proper about the way his heart suddenly hammered against his ribs. "Midstream," she said quietly. "Thank you, Mr. Hawkins, not just for this." Something passed between them then, undefinable but undeniable. As black rock appeared on the horizon the following day, both felt an unexpected reluctance to reach their destination. The Sisters of the Sacred Heart received Mary Catherine with embraces and tears, their black habits surrounding her like protective wings. Mother Abigail Montgomery, stern-faced with kind eyes, offered Cole a meal and lodging before continuing his journey. "You have done God's work, Mr. Hawkins," she said gravely, "though I suspect you would not call it such." Cole merely nodded, uncomfortable with gratitude he felt he didn't deserve. After dinner, drawn by an impulse he couldn't name, Cole found himself in the convent's small chapel. He stood awkwardly, hat in hand, surrounded by flickering candles and unfamiliar silence. "It's peaceful here, isn't it?" Mary Catherine's voice came softly from behind. Cole turned to find her in a clean habit, transformed yet somehow more familiar. "I'm not much for churches. Yet here you are." She moved beside him, her presence both comforting and disquieting. "Mother Superior says I should return to Boston," she continued. "The mission school has been abandoned after the raid." Cole nodded, ignoring an unexpected tightness in his chest. "Probably for the best." "And you? Will you continue hunting James Rawlins?" "I have to," he said simply, "even if it costs your life." Her eyes held his. "What of your nephew, then?" The question struck Cole like a physical blow. Before he could answer, commotion erupted outside, hoofbeats approaching at speed, men's voices raised in command. "Stay here," Cole ordered, but Mary Catherine followed as he strode into the courtyard. 3 riders had entered through the gate. Cole's blood froze. Thomas Rawlins, James Rawlins, the man he'd hunted for 3 years, and a third man he didn't recognize. "Hawkins," James called, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "I hear you've been looking for me." Cole pushed Mary Catherine behind him. "This is between us, Rawlins. Take it outside the convent." James laughed coldly. "I don't think so. My brother tells me you've taken quite an interest in this nun." His eyes fixed on Mary Catherine predatorily. "Thought she might convince you to end this vendetta." Cole drew with lightning speed, but Thomas had already dismounted and grabbed Mary Catherine, pressing a knife to her throat. "Drop the gun, Hawkins, or the sister meets her maker early." Cole lowered his weapon slowly, cold fury washing through him. "Now swear you're done chasing me," James demanded, approaching. "Swear on whatever you hold sacred." Mary Catherine's eyes met Cole's over Thomas's shoulder. There was no fear in them, only a calm certainty that took Cole by surprise. "I'm done," Cole said evenly. "You have my word." "I don't believe you," James sneered, drawing his gun, "but just to make sure you remember your promise." Aha! What happened next unfolded with terrible swiftness. Mary Catherine drove her elbow into Thomas's stomach. As James turned, Cole lunged for his weapon. The third man fired, grazing Cole's shoulder. Cole returned fire, killing him instantly. Thomas recovered enough to grab for Mary Catherine again, but she dropped to the ground as Cole had taught her. Cole's second shot caught Thomas in the arm. James fired at Cole. The bullet splintered a wooden post beside him. Cole took aim and fired twice. The second shot found its mark. James Rawlins collapsed face forward into the dusty courtyard. In the sudden silence, Mother Abigail moved forward, making the sign of the cross. "This is a house of God," she said, her voice trembling. "Not any more," Cole replied grimly, moving to check Mary Catherine. "More of Rawlins' men will come. You should all leave." As arrangements were hastily made for evacuation to Denver, Mary Catherine remained by Cole's side, binding his wounded shoulder. Their eyes met occasionally, both recognizing that something fundamental had shifted between them, forged in blood and gunsmoke, that should never have defiled this sanctuary. Dawn painted the horizon as the sisters prepared to depart for Denver. Cole stood at the convent gate, watching the sky lighten. Mary Catherine approached, her footsteps nearly silent on the packed earth. "Will you come with us to Denver?" she asked. Cole shook his head. "I need to take Thomas Rawlins to the marshal in Silver Creek. Make sure he stands trial." "And then?" "Then I go back to my nephew. Try to be what he needs." A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. "I've been praying about my path forward," Mary Catherine finally said. "I don't believe Boston is where I'm meant to be." Cole looked at her sharply. "What are you saying?" "That perhaps God's plan lies in a different direction." Her gaze was steady. "There are children in need of education in Denver, too. Children like your nephew." Cole felt his heart quicken. "Sister!" "Mary," she interrupted. "My name before I took my vows was Mary Catherine Sullivan." "You would leave the convent?" Cole asked, searching her face. "My vows are to serve God and His children. There are many ways to do that." She smiled slightly. "I've survived being captured by outlaws and sold at auction. I think I can survive whatever comes next. "I'll be in Denver in 2 weeks," Cole said. "If you're still of the same mind, then—" "I will be," she replied with quiet certainty. They parted at a crossroads, Mary Catherine traveling north with the sisters, Cole riding south with his prisoner. Thomas Rollins sat slumped in the saddle, his wounded arm bound roughly. "Why did you do it?" Cole asked, after miles of silence. "Follow your brother into this life?" Thomas looked up, eyes hollow. "James was all I had. Didn't know any other way." In Silver Creek, the marshal received Thomas with raised eyebrows. "Never thought I'd see a Rollins brought in alive." "He's agreed to testify against the remaining gang members," Cole explained. Thomas nodded wearily. "No point protecting them now. James was the only one I cared about." "Even though he would have sacrificed you in a heartbeat?" Cole asked. Thomas gave a bitter laugh. "Family's complicated, Hawkins. You should know that." The words followed Cole as he rode toward Denver, toward the friend's home where Jamie waited. The boy stood in the doorway, small and solemn, his eyes, so like his father's, watching Cole approach with cautious hope. "Uncle Cole?" he whispered, the first word he'd spoken in months. Cole knelt, throat tight. "I'm here, Jamie. I'm staying this time." Days became a rhythm of building. Cole purchased land outside Denver, hired men to raise barn walls while he taught Jamie to groom horses. The boy remained largely silent, but followed Cole like a shadow, watching, learning. A week passed before Cole rode into Denver proper, finding himself outside a small schoolhouse. Through the window, he saw Mary Catherine, Mary, teaching children to write their letters. Her habit was gone, replaced by a simple blue dress. She looked up suddenly, as if sensing his presence, and their eyes met through the glass. Later, as children scattered homeward, she stepped onto the porch. "You're early," she said simply. "Some journeys can't wait," Cole replied, removing his hat. "And some destinies find us whether we're ready or not." Her smile held both certainty and question, the beginning of an answer neither had known they were seeking. Winter settled over Colorado, transforming Cole's half-built ranch into a landscape of white possibility. Within the cabin's rough-hewn walls, a peculiar kind of family was taking shape. Jamie now spoke in complete sentences to Mary, though he remained silent with strangers. Mary visited daily, her schoolhouse closed for the season, bringing books and patience that seemed to thaw something frozen in both uncle and nephew. "He needs consistency," she told Cole one evening as they watched Jamie sleeping. "And safety. You've given him both." Cole shook his head. "He deserves more than a killer for a guardian." "Is that all you are?" Mary challenged softly. Before Cole could answer, hoofbeats approached. Cole's hand moved automatically to his gun as he stepped onto the porch. Sheriff Callahan sat astride his horse, looking grim. "Thought you should know," he said without preamble. "2 of Rawlins's men were spotted near Denver. Word is, they're looking for revenge." After the sheriff departed, Cole found Mary standing in the doorway, her face pale but resolute. "You should stay in town until this passes," Cole said. "And leave you and Jamie alone?" "I think not." Her voice held a stubbornness he'd come to recognize. The next morning, Mother Abigail arrived unexpectedly, her severe expression softening at the sight of Jamie reading to Mary by the fire. "Walk with me, Mary Catherine," she requested. Outside, snow crunched beneath their boots as they circled the half-finished barn. "You haven't been to services in 3 weeks," the older woman said. "The weather," Mary began, "is not what keeps you away." Mother Abigail stopped walking. "You need to examine your true calling, child. and your feelings for Mr. Hawkins." Mary flushed. "I'm still serving God's children?" "Yes, but are you still serving God?" Mother Abigail's eyes were kind but piercing. "I'm not condemning you, Mary. I'm asking you to be honest with yourself." Inside, Cole watched through the window, noting Mary's bowed head, the way her shoulders straightened as if accepting a burden or shedding one. That afternoon, while Mary helped Jamie with his letters, Cole rode into town to meet with Sheriff Callahan. He returned after dark to find Mary alone on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, despite the cold. "I've accepted a deputy position," he told her. "Part-time." Mary raised an eyebrow. "You're becoming a lawman?" "Seems fitting," Cole said, "using what I know for something better than killing." Mary smiled. "Jamie will be proud." A gunshot cracked the night's stillness. Cole pushed Mary down, covering her as a bullet splintered the porch post. Drawing his weapon, he fired toward the tree line, then pulled Mary inside. "Stay with Jamie," he ordered, checking his ammunition. "Cole!" Mary caught his arm. "Be careful." He paused, struck by the way she said his name, like a prayer offered without reservation. By morning, one Rawlins man lay dead in the snow. The other had escaped, leaving a blood trail that vanished at the road. Cole returned exhausted to find Mary and Jamie safe, breakfast waiting. As Jamie ran to him, Cole looked over the boy's head to meet Mary's gaze. "This life I'm trying to build," he said later, after Jamie was asleep, "it's always going to be tainted by what I've done." Mary took his hands, still rough from the cold. "We're all marked by our past, Cole, but we don't have to be imprisoned by it." "What about your vows?" he asked quietly. "My vow is to serve God and His children," she replied. "There are many ways to do that." The words hung between them, a bridge neither was quite ready to cross, but one they could now see clearly in the distance. Spring seemed distant as February storms isolated the ranch. Inside the cabin, now finished with proper windows and a stone fireplace, Cole sat at the rough-hewn table, cleaning his deputy's badge. Mary worked nearby, mending Jamie's clothes, her formal petition for release from vows newly sent to the diocese. "Thomas Rawlins's testimony ended today," Cole said, breaking the companionable silence. "Judge sentenced the remaining gang members to 20 years. Mary looked up. "Does it feel like justice?" Cole considered this. Not justice. Closure. Maybe. A knock at the door startled them both. Cole's hand moved to his gun before he recognized Sheriff Callahan's voice. "Got a letter for Miss Sullivan," the sheriff said, handing over an official envelope, "and thought you should know Thomas Rawlins is being released next week. Time served and cooperation." After Callahan left, Mary stared at the sealed letter. "It's from the diocese?" Cole watched her face as she read, unable to interpret her expression. "What does it say?" "I've been granted dispensation," she said quietly. "I'm no longer Sister Mary Catherine." Something shifted in the room's atmosphere. Cole stood, uncertain suddenly, in this territory more dangerous than any gunfight. "Is that what you wanted?" he asked. Before she could answer, Jamie burst in from his room. "Uncle Cole, look what I made." He thrust forward a crude wooden carving of a horse. The moment passed, but Cole felt its echo throughout the evening in the way Mary's fingers brushed his when passing the dinner plates, in the careful distance she maintained as they put Jamie to bed together. That night, the worst blizzard of the season descended. By morning, snow sealed the doors and windows. Cole awoke feverish, the old wound in his shoulder inflamed. By nightfall, he was delirious, the infection raging through his body. Mary tended him tirelessly, melting snow for compresses, using the last of their medicine. Jamie hovered anxiously nearby, frightened by his uncle's weakness. "He's going to die like Pa," the boy whispered. Mary knelt before him. "Number your uncle is the strongest man I've ever known, but right now, we need to be strong for him. Can you do that?" Jamie nodded solemnly. Through the fever's haze, Cole drifted between past and present. He mumbled names of men he'd killed, called for his brother, and once, with startling clarity, grasped Mary's hand. "You were right," he whispered. "About what?" she asked, cooling his brow. "Suffering isn't the end of the story." His blue eyes found focus, briefly. "You're the next chapter I never thought I'd get to read." On the third night, as Cole's fever finally broke, a shadow moved outside. Mary, exhausted from nursing, saw the lantern light reflect off a gun barrel through the window. Without hesitation, she took Cole's revolver from the bedside and moved to the door. The last Rollins man never expected to face a former nun instead of the legendary Gunslinger. Her single shot caught him in the chest, the report echoing across the snow-covered landscape. When Cole fully regained consciousness the next day, Mary sat beside him, her face showing the strain of sleepless nights. "Jamie said you saved us," Cole said, his voice weak but clear. "Perhaps that's what we do," she replied. "Save each other." Cole's hand found hers. No fever driving him now, only clear-eyed certainty. "Mary Catherine Sullivan, when I can stand again, I have something to ask you." Her smile contained all the answer he needed as the storm outside finally began to ease, revealing patches of blue sky between the clouds. Spring seemed distant as February storms isolated the ranch. Inside the cabin, now finished with the proper windows and a stone fireplace, Cole sat at the rough-hewn table, cleaning his deputy's badge. Mary worked nearby, mending Jamie's clothes, her formal petition for release from vows newly sent to the diocese. "Thomas Rollins' testimony ended today," Cole said, breaking the companionable silence. "Judge sentenced the remaining gang members to 20 years. Mary looked up. "Does it feel like justice?" Cole considered this. "Not justice. Closure, maybe." A knock at the door startled them both. Cole's hand moved to his gun before he recognized Sheriff Callahan's voice. "Got a letter for Miss Sullivan," the sheriff said, handing over an official envelope. "And thought you should know. Thomas Rollins is being released next week. Time served and cooperation." After Callahan left, Mary stared at the sealed letter. "It's from the diocese." Cole watched her face as she read, unable to interpret her expression. "What does it say?" "I've been granted dispensation," she said quietly. "I'm no longer Sister Mary Catherine." Something shifted in the room's atmosphere. Cole stood, uncertain suddenly in this territory, more dangerous than any gunfight. "Is that what you wanted?" he asked. Before she could answer, Jamie burst in from his room. "Uncle Cole, look what I made." He thrust forward a crude wooden carving of a horse. The moment passed, but Cole felt its echo throughout the evening in the way Mary's fingers brushed his when passing the dinner plates, in the careful distance she maintained as they put Jamie to bed together. That night, the worst blizzard of the season descended. By morning, snow sealed the doors and windows. Cole awoke feverish, the old wound in his shoulder inflamed. By nightfall, he was delirious, the infection raging through his body. Mary tended him tirelessly, melting snow for compresses, using the last of their medicine. Jamie hovered anxiously nearby, frightened by his uncle's weakness. "He's going to die like Pa," the boy whispered. Mary knelt before him. Remember, your uncle is the strongest man I've ever known. But right now we need to be strong for him. Can you do that? Jamie nodded solemnly. Through the fever's haze, Cole drifted between past and present. He mumbled names of men he'd killed, called for his brother, and once, with startling clarity, grasped Mary's hand. You were right, he whispered. About what? She asked, cooling his brow. Suffering isn't the end of the story. His blue eyes found focus briefly. You're the next chapter I never thought I'd get to read. On the third night, as Cole's fever finally broke, a shadow moved outside. Mary, exhausted from nursing, saw the lantern light reflect off a gun barrel through the window. Without hesitation, she took Cole's revolver from the bedside and moved to the door. The last Rollins man never expected to face a former nun instead of the legendary Gunslinger. Her single shot caught him in the chest, the report echoing across the snow-covered landscape. When Cole fully regained consciousness the next day, Mary sat beside him, her face showing the strain of sleepless nights. Jamie said you saved us, Cole said, his voice weak but clear. Perhaps that's what we do, she replied. Save each other. Cole's hand found hers, no fever driving him now, only clear-eyed certainty. Mary Catherine Sullivan, when I can stand again, I have something to ask you. Her smile contained all the answer he needed as the storm outside finally began to ease, revealing patches of blue sky between the clouds. Apple blossoms scented the May afternoon as Cole stood before the small church on the outskirts of Denver. Inside, Jamie fidgeted with his new suit collar, while Sheriff Callahan adjusted Cole's borrowed tie. Never thought I'd see the day, Callahan chuckled. The notorious Cole Hawkins, nervous as a schoolboy. Cole's hand closed around the simple ring in his pocket, his mother's wedding band, reshaped by the blacksmith to fit Mary's finger. Not nervous, just ... Terrified? Callahan suggested. Cole almost smiled. Something like that. The church doors opened. Mother Abigail entered first, her stern face softened with something approaching approval. Then Mary appeared in a simple blue dress, wild columbine flowers in her hands. Cole's breath caught at the sight of her. As she moved toward him, Cole saw not just the woman before him, but the journey that had brought them here. A dusty auction block in Redemption, a thunderstorm-forced confession, a convent courtyard stained with blood, a snow-covered cabin where healing began. The minister's words washed over them, promises of fidelity through hardship and joy. When the time came for Cole to speak his vows, he surprised himself with steady clarity. I once paid $1,000 for your freedom, he said. I didn't know I was really buying my own? Mary's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she responded, God's plans are not always what we expect, but they are always perfect. As the minister pronounced them husband and wife, a movement at the back of the church caught Cole's attention. Thomas Rollins stood in the shadows, hat in hand. Their eyes met briefly, acknowledgement, not forgiveness, passing between them. Thomas nodded once, then slipped away. The celebration afterward brought together the unlikely community they'd formed, school children, reformed outlaws, lawmen, and nuns gathered on the ranch that now boasted a finished barn and expanded cabin. Mother Abigail approached the newlyweds, her expression inscrutable. The Lord works in mysterious ways, she said, eyes moving between them. Sometimes the most unlikely instruments serve his purpose best. I'm still not sure I believe that, Cole admitted. Belief isn't required for truth to be truth, Mr. Hawkins, she replied, with unexpected gentleness. You've created something worthy here. That's miracle enough for one lifetime. As evening approached, guests departed. Jamie fell asleep by the fire, exhausted from excitement. Mary joined Cole on the porch, leaning against his shoulder as they watched stars appear. Do you ever regret the path that brought us here? She asked. Cole shook his head. The price of redemption is high, but I'd pay it twice over to be where we are now. 1 year later, the schoolhouse bell rang across the expanded ranch. Children spilled from the doorway, Jamie among them, now 7 and thriving. Mary stood in the threshold, one hand resting on her swollen belly. Cole approached on horseback, returning from his deputy duties in town. Jamie ran to him, chattering about arithmetic and spelling tests. Cole lifted him easily, listening with genuine interest to the boy's excitement. As Cole reached the schoolhouse, Mary smiled, that same smile that had first pierced his defenses on a desperate journey from redemption. How are my girls? Cole asked, his free hand gently touching her stomach. Impatient to meet their father? Mary replied, placing her hand over his. That night, with Jamie asleep and the ranch quiet under moonlight, they sat on the porch swing Cole had built when Mary first announced her pregnancy. I found a letter from Thomas Rawlins at the post office, Cole said. He's working honestly in Wyoming, asked if we could ever forgive him. Can you? Mary asked. Cole considered this. Not yet, but someday, maybe. That's more than I would have said a year ago. Mary leaned against him, her warmth a constant reminder of all he'd gained. That's what love does, Cole. It makes room for possibilities we never imagined. Their home glowed with lantern light, a beacon visible from the main road, guiding travelers and marking a place where second chances weren't just possible, but real. The price of redemption had been high, but its rewards proved greater than either could have dreamed on that distant day when a gunslinger bought a nun at auction, and both their lives were forever changed.